Alright, what's going on, everyone? Today, we're going to be talking about some news, not technically news. We're going to be speculating. We're going to be talking about a very sad subject, guys. I'm not very hopeful, unfortunately, that the Challenger decks are going to be happening this year. It's kind of unfortunate. I have loudly proclaimed that they are the best product that Wizards of the Coast makes. The Challenger decks and the Commander decks probably are some of the best products they make. I mean, they're just so useful. It's all about accessibility, right? The fact that you can go spend $30, have a Friday Night Magic playable standard deck is super relevant. You know, it's an amazing product. When they first announced it, I was actually kind of shocked that they were so good. They were so good for players. They were so good for local game stores. They were bad for investors. I mean, that never happens. Wizards of the Coast making something that's good for players, good for stores, bad for investors is not something you see very often. But that was an example of Wizards of the Coast saying, hey, we're going to do something for the players, we're going to do something for the stores, and investors will just have to deal with it. Pretty cool, really liked it. Unfortunately, this year it's not looking good. Obviously, because Friday Night Magic isn't technically happening. There is a chance that your local game store is still holding events. Some are. I think there was one in my area that was still holding events. I don't know if they still are. They were over the summer. They might be back in quarantine again. I'm not sure. But those aren't official Friday Night Magic events. Those are like unofficial, kind of like off the record things. You know, local game stores can do what they want. They want to host a tournament, they can. But Wizards of the Coast is officially, technically saying Friday Night Magic isn't happening. And that makes Challenger decks kind of awkward because they are like the quintessential Friday Night Magic product. I know a lot of kitchen table players still played them. I know a lot of people still bought them and played them against each other casually. I get that, but I think generally speaking, they were primarily or predominantly bought by Friday Night Magic players. I know the last round of last year's did very poorly. If you don't remember, they were actually released a week early. They were originally scheduled for April 3rd, and then they were pushed up. They were released March 27th when the quarantines were announced. They basically pushed them out and just said, get rid of these, sell them ahead of time, it's fine. They allowed local game stores to sell them early. They didn't know how long the quarantines would last. They just said, no, sell them now while people are hyped about them, and hopefully we can use them, you know, in later months. That didn't turn out to be the case, and they still did very poorly anyway. So now we have another year. You know, these should be announced already. They have not been. And, you know, with Friday Night Magic's not technically happening, it doesn't bode well for these this year. So last year, they were announced in December, December 18th. The deck list weren't announced, but they announced that they were coming back. We did not get that announcement this year. The deck lists were released in February though, so we still have time for that. There's a chance that Wizards of the Coast is holding back on announcing that they're, you know, releasing Friday Night Magic decks in the middle of winter, right? So maybe they're just going to announce the deck list, you know, February, March, and, you know, hope that there's no like pushback, you know, because of, you know, it's kind of awkward for a company to be releasing a product that's designed to be played with other people in the middle of a quarantine. Regardless of your political opinions about that, it's kind of pathetic that it's politicized, but whatever. Regardless, as a company, they're going to be self-aware about how what they do is perceived. So in the middle of December, in the middle of cold season, flu season, you know, with spiking infection rates and stuff, saying, hey, we're going to be releasing this paper product that's designed to be played in large gatherings and small enclosed places. It would make sense if they didn't release them at all, but it would also make sense if they just didn't make that announcement if they were going to release them. So there's still a chance that maybe they still announce them in February, but I would say that the likelihood of that is not very good. Very, very, very unlikely that they even happen at all. One way they could salvage them, they could still release them as normal with arena codes. That would require them to give us extra stuff, which is another thing that I wouldn't expect a company to do, is just to give people free value. This is an excuse to finally start including them. You know, they didn't in the past, and now they can look like the hero, right? They're like, hey guys, we don't want you to play in paper, but we'll sell you these paper decks with arena codes so you can go play them on arena. It lets them save face from releasing a paper product because they could say that they're doing it for the sake of, you know, giving people arena decks, and also they can start including F&M codes without admitting that they're giving free value, even if they are, right? Like, that's an opportunity to do that, but I still think that's also very unlikely. I think it's much more likely that they just don't release these at all. In-store play is still suspended, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that. I didn't actually. I know I didn't. I have the article here. Here's the screenshot. So they release these articles on the WPN website every month. They release them monthly. The last one was January 13th. and they said that it's still closed and the next announcement will be on February 10th. So the very, very, very unlikely, never going to happen scenario is that on February 10th, they announced that in-store play is back up and running, that it's open, and that, oh, by the way, we actually did do the F&M, the Challenger decks. But that's not going to happen. Not very likely. Not this year. Maybe they delay them by a couple months. But again, it's just I feel like the Challenger decks, they're going to be very directly tied to whether or not people are playing in stores. So if they are still saying that we're technically suspending in-store play, at least in terms of like official tournaments and whatnot, and so long as they're doing that, right? So long as they are saying, hey, in-store play is suspended, then they're probably not going to release Challenger decks. Maybe there's a chance, but I'm putting it in the very low likelihood. My best guess, I'm like 90% sure that they just won't be happening this year. My only hope is that they continue next year, and the over the rainbow hope is that, hey, maybe they do release them with F&M codes or with F&M codes with arena codes. I don't expect that, but you know, that's a possibility. If they were going to release them though, I mean, there's a few pretty easy options for these. Mono red aggro, mono green stompy, or the mono green food decks. Demir rogues. That right there gives you 4 of the 5 colors. You've got blue, black, red, and green, so you only need white. So 3 out of 4 decks, you get most of the colors. You get a variety of decks, you know. You got aggro, you've got stompy, you've got control, mill, kind of tempo-y with flying and stuff. So that gives you a variety of decks, a variety of play styles, and you're covering most of the colors, because I think they do generally every color represented, and they try to do like 1 aggro, 1 mid-range, 1 control deck. So that just leaves us with white and potentially something that's a little bit more controlling. And there's a couple options for that. Yorion, like the Yorion control decks would work, but that would require them to print an 80 card deck. So they would be, you know, kind of losing value. They'd be printing 20 more cards, but still selling it for the same price, presumably. So I don't know if they would do a Yorion deck just because it would require, you know, 80 reprints instead of 60, or technically 95 reprints instead of 75. There's also like a Doom Foretold, right? Doom Foretold is a white based control deck. That's an option as well. So that way you have all colors, you have all archetypes, or at least, you know, the major archetypes. So yeah, that makes sense, right? Rogues, mono red aggro, mono green food or mono green stompy, and like Doom Foretold or Yorion. Makes perfect sense to me, but unfortunately, I don't see this happening. This isn't the end of Challenger decks as a whole. I do hope they happen next year, and it would be great if they happen this year. I just don't expect it. So hopefully next year we'll have Challenger decks, but I wouldn't put my money on it happening this year. So just wanted to talk about that. I don't know if there's really anyone talking about these. I was looking around to see if there were any announcements for whether or not they were happening, and I just couldn't really find a lot of information about them. They're really popular among Friday Night Magic players, but the overwhelming majority of like search results on Google when you're trying to find stuff is arena related. So it's really hard to just like find out what's going on at the LGS level. But from what I could tell, not a lot of people are talking about these, but it's looking like a pretty grim prognosis as to their release this year. So just wanted to make that hopefully useful information, even though there wasn't a lot. It's just me being disappointed that there's no Challenger decks this year. Most likely, again, this isn't news, this isn't solid, I don't know for sure, but that's my assumption. So here you go, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.